yes, like we're realistic, but at the same time, there's some freaky stuff going on. And I remember saying in the middle of that movie, like, what is going on?
I watched that movie in theater 4 times.
Oh my gosh. No, you did not.
I did.
Just didn't look pleasing. Welcome to Backseat Directing. Today we have a bonus episode that's going to be a little bit different. We have myself, Arron, and our guest, Justin, who is replacing Andrew. So it's just us two. No Andrew. So let's see how this goes.
Very strange, probably, for you.
Yeah, this is weird. This is actually, the more that I'm talking right now, the weirder it seems.
Yeah, I
looking straight across at you instead of you over to the side there. And there's no Andrew.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like maybe I'll like start editing this episode back and be like, yeah, this just doesn't work.
Yeah,
you know,
this
it's
might
just
not release, but
yeah.
who knows? Maybe there's some hidden gems. Maybe there's just absolute garbage. I don't know.
Yeah. So every once in a while, Andrew and I do a Let's Talk episode. And this is where we kind of have an open format where we can just talk about whatever we want. And I thought that today, maybe for this episode, we could talk a little bit about DC and the DCU and the new DCU and kind of the projects that are coming up and maybe what you wish would have happened and what you hope is going to happen and just the state of DC in general. I know that you're very passionate about DC. I believe you like DC more than Marvel, right?
I do.
So I feel like this is a good topic for our bonus episode today.
It is a good topic. Yes, I do love DC more than Marvel. Not any hate toward Marvel. I still love Marvel, but DC has just always been like held a special place in my heart. And the DCU felt like what Zack Snyder started with Man of Steel. I wish could have kept going, but you know things didn't.
Yeah, man, they
pan out that way.
They started out really strong.
Yeah.
With Man of Steel. I remember watching it in theaters. I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters with my mom, and I didn't know that they were gonna like start their own cinematic universe. You know, like at that point in time, I was just like a casual superhero fan. You know, and I was like, man, that movie was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then Batman v Superman came out, and I watched it, and I remember saying in the middle of that movie, like, what is going on? Like, what is happening right now? I don't even understand this movie. This makes no sense. And it's not because it's complicated. It's because it just, like, wasn't presented very well, you know? Or maybe I'm just an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot. All right. There's a lot of people who feel the same way, and I feel differently. I watched that movie in theater 4 times.
Oh my gosh. No, you did not.
I did.
4 times?
4 times. I remember specifically I was about to go on a trip to Haiti, and I watched it with my mom the night before I left because I needed to watch it before I went there.
Sure.
The day I came back, or the next day after I came back, I watched it again. Then I watched it 2 more times by myself in the theater, and that was the theatrical cut. And then I don't remember how much time passed, but the Ultimate Edition came out, and I watched that, and I was like, holy crap, this is 10 times better. And so the Ultimate Edition is definitely the one I'm referencing when I say that I'm not going to say I love the movie. I know it does have some problems, but I love Batman. I really like Superman, especially Henry Cavill's Superman.
He's the man.
He's the best Superman that we've gotten.
For sure.
And with having said that, I love what happened in Batman v Superman. I know that there's many different routes that could have been taken.
Define that. What do you mean? What do you mean when you say, like, I like what happened?
Okay, so I really like Zack Snyder's visual storytelling.
Yeah.
I think that's what he excels at. I don't think he's the greatest storyteller. I don't think he's the greatest, plot descriptor, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of his films are very like you either love it or you hate it. There's kind of no in between.
Yeah.
But as far as visual storytelling, he excels in that category. And by that, there's a lot of shots in BVS that are visually amazing.
Not wrong.
You can clearly tell with
It's just
BVS.
really cool seeing Batman and Superman interact on the screen.
Yeah,
Like,
and the first time I saw that in theater, I was like, "Oh, this is the best movie ever made," which obviously is not. But you know,
I
it's
can't
that-
believe you saw it 4 times in theaters. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie more than once in theaters.
Oh man,
There's a few movies that I wish I could go back and see in theaters again,
yes.
you know?
Mhm.
But there wasn't a movie that was like so stunning that I needed to go back and watch it right away, to where I actually, for me, it's less of the barrier of like, oh, like having to go watch it. It's more of the barrier of like the $12 that I would have to spend to like go
Yes.
watch it.
Yes.
Cause like, how do I justify doing that? Especially nowadays when the movie's going to come out
Yeah.
on
In, like,
Amazon or whatever in like
days.
3 months. Yeah.
Shazam 2 coming out on digital already.
Yeah. Well, that's because no one saw it in theaters.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but you know, I can't. I haven't seen
Did you see it?
I have not seen it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Andrew didn't
really-
like it.
I didn't have a desire. I felt like I saw everything in the trailer.
I agree. It's not a good sign when the best shot in the trailer is from the first movie
Yes.
for the second movie.
Also, it's not that it's the best shot, but that's also what kind of downplayed the BVS movie because they showed Doomsday in the third trailer, I believe, and they really shouldn't have. That should,
They do that. They've done that with all of their movies, pretty much, right? Of the DC
I think
EU.
besides Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't really a greater threat to show in Man of Steel besides
Right.
that, but the Man of Steel trailers were solid. But I do think if they hadn't showed Doomsday in that third trailer or the fourth trailer, I think people would have been like a little bit more accepting of the fact that Doomsday was in there because it would have been like a shock surprise.
It was a little abrupt.
It was. And it definitely was shoehorned in with Snyder feeling like he needed to do the Death of Superman storyline in the second movie of the DCU.
Yeah.
But
Like, that's like killing Iron Man in Iron Man 2.
it is. And,
Like-
and
That's rough.
that's what's sad, I think, about the timeline or the time that they were in with the DCU versus the MCU because the MCU started in 2008 with Iron Man. They had a lot more time to plan. They had Kevin Feige in charge. Snyder definitely started with Man of Steel, a solid film. And I think you could see it took them 3 years to make a sequel. And it wasn't going to be a Batman vs. Superman. It was going to be a Man of Steel 2. But you can tell he wanted to make a Batman movie. And I feel like if he did just make a Batman movie, it would have been better.
Yeah, I
But-
agree. Or even Wonder Woman too, because she showed up
Yeah,
in this movie as well.
yeah, that too.
But it's like you just don't have any connection to these characters in this world, in this universe. You know, like obviously people know Wonder Woman and Batman and stuff, but in this cinematic universe, we didn't have any introduction to these characters, whether it's an origin or just our first time seeing them in action. And we basically got them all into this one rushed movie. What did you think of the Martha? Because Andrew hates that part.
Oh, I know. That's the hardest part for me to fight about the movie.
Because it looked really cool, right?
Probably a hot take, but I'm okay. I'm okay with the Martha scene.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Because, okay, I'll say this. This is an ultra hot take. If you're okay with Iron Man being pissed off that Bucky killed his mother, you should be okay with the Martha sequence in Batman v Superman.
Not the same. Not the same.
Not the same. But here's the thing. When I watched Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, I never got the sense that he really loved his parents at all. Okay? So by the time Civil War comes around, they show us the flashback sequences, which look great, but they try and like get us to feel for his attachment to his father and his mother. Which his father, you could obviously tell there were some struggles there for him to feel attached to him. But his mother, I just never felt that attachment between Tony Stark and his mother at all. And Bruce in BVS, you've already seen multiple iterations of the Thomas and Martha death sequence, whether it's games, animation, live action. I know that he loved his parents, and he was only 8 or 9 years old, coming out of the theater. They got murdered in cold blood, and that sequence in BVS where Superman's mother is ironically, I will admit, ironically named Martha as well. It's just a simple moment of like, holy crap, she's human. He's human. My mother, I love her. I miss her. He must miss, like, he loves his mother. You know, like, regardless of how you feel about the movie, you have to understand the connection that he's making in that moment. If you were to put yourself in his shoes, and I know people are gonna be like, well, if you were to put yourself in Iron Man's shoes, you would hate Bucky for killing his mother. I'm like, if I didn't like my parents, why would I care that Bucky killed my parents, you know?
Well, like, kind of living in your dad's shadow, or like your dad, like, being very preoccupied in his work or something, and maybe you built some resentment towards him for loving his work more than you, or so it seems. And then, like, you're right, we didn't get to see too much of his mom and stuff. But like, that's a little different. Like, it's what was the original question? Like, the way they presented it was a lot different. It was very, again, abrupt in Batman versus Superman.
I think that is the downfall of Batman vs Superman, because they were cramming so much into one movie. They were cramming 3 movies into one.
So your point was, exactly. Your original point there was, like, if someone killed your parents but you didn't really like your parents, like, I think and we get to see later in Endgame as well, he always loved his parents, but he just didn't get the attention that he felt like he needed from them. So I feel like just because you have resentment towards someone that's your family doesn't mean that you wouldn't care if they die.
And that's okay. But if you are okay with that, or if anyone's okay with that as far as being in a film, I feel like the BVS Martha sequence shouldn't get as much hate just because he said the name Martha, and it just so happened to be the same name as Superman's mother. Because Superman's mother is still alive. He obviously loves her very much. Bruce's mother is also Martha, and she was killed when he was very young, and he loved her so much. That's literally what turned him into being this brooding, like, double personality superhero versus regular human. So I think that people just pass up the fact that both Iron Man and Batman both do still love their mothers, but Iron Man gets the pass because he had the past movies to build.
I don't know if it's a past. I think it's just better presentation.
I think it's because Civil War was the 3rd film in the Captain America trilogy, and you already had 3 Iron Man film movies. But I mean,
timing is everything.
It is.
Right? Like, and story development, character development, like, that all plays a role. Like, I understand where you're coming from, of, like, it's a justifiable reason for them to relate to each other. But it was too soon maybe for them to have, or for us as the audience to have that be an acceptable reason for them to relate to each other.
I partly can agree, but the thing is, I remember having a conversation with some of my close friends, and we were talking about how many times should we revisit characters' origin stories before we just stop doing them and go straight into like the story.
Well, that's fair. We don't have to have an origin story like the Batman. That was fantastic. We didn't see the origin story. They hinted to certain aspects of it. Mm-hmm. They could have done that with the Batman, with Wonder Woman, or whatever before they did Batman versus Superman. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just to give us a little more context.
Yeah. So with that, obviously they do reference the origin with, you know, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen in this very slow-mo Zack Snyder-esque sequence of, you know, the gun with, you know, the pearls and stuff like that. But like tagging on to that, I think they still showed it because we hadn't seen it since 2005 with Batman Begins. But the general audience, mainly like us who would go to see the superhero movies, didn't need that extra attachment to the character of Batman because you already should know who he is. He's already an older Batman. It's not like Robert Pattinson's or Christian Bale's where they're younger. And I think with all that having being said is that, you know, Martha is his mother. And in that moment, which in the Ultimate Edition is a little bit later than the theatrical cut, and I think that's to its downfall, is the theatrical cut shouldn't have been that. It should have been the Ultimate Edition, I believe. Which
I don't think I've seen that version.
You should watch it. It's 30 extra minutes, and it fills in a lot of the gaps, and it makes a lot more sense. And having had Endgame released and Avatar The Way of Water, I think it could have been released, but it was their second film in the DCEU, so they were kind of scared.
Yeah, I think the overall like problem with BVS was just too much too soon. You know, they were trying to play catch up to Marvel, and it just didn't work. And I think from there, everything else kind of followed suit. I think the first Wonder Woman was pretty good. I think on rewatch, I don't like it as much as I did originally, but I still like it. I don't like Aquaman. I'm pretty sure you like Aquaman, right?
I do.
All right, let's move on from Aquaman.
I mean, one comment I make about Aquaman, I know it's campy in some parts. It's got a lot of cringiness to it.
Too much.
I would say probably on the verge of too much. But
it just didn't look pleasing. The screen, like underwater and stuff, like there's just too much chaos going on and not enough direction.
Man, that's crazy. I can kind of see the not enough direction part, because it was James Wan's first stab at a superhero film, and he comes from a very horror background. But I think
just seeing them sit on a shark that's not moving just doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I think
that's an animal that's very well known that it has to stay moving to stay alive. And I know like there's a lot of things in a superhero
moving to stay alive.
Yes, because that's how the water passes its gills, so it can get the oxygen from water. Like it's literally just
something new every day.
Sharks can't idle. Most sharks, anyways. The great white that they're sitting on can't do that in real life. And it's like, I can suspend belief pretty good in like a superhero movie, but that's something that's real, you know, like, so it's harder for me to like disconnect from reality and be like, oh, this is just a movie, this is really fun. But it's like, no, that's just not how things work. So like, it's just, I don't know. I can't get past some of that stuff. I
think with Aquaman, I think the first time I watched it, I was like, is this good? Is this not good? And then I watched it a second time. And when I watched it the third time, I think I just got really attached to the father-son relationship, which is what kind of put me over that edge of like, yeah, it's a good movie. And the soundtrack, I think, is pretty good for the movie it is. It's got some really heartfelt moments, even though it's got some really weird comical moments, like could have just peed on it, but which for some reason I saw someone make a meme about like the DCU loves like pee memes, and it's kind of true because it's almost mentioned in every single movie. But I don't know. I can't argue Aquaman as much as I can argue Batman vs Superman. So
Batman vs Superman has at least like some pretty good peaks.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and like you said, it's got
just like Batman standing up out of the Batmobile to Superman right there. Like, that shot is on a lot of our like intro titles to this podcast. Like, I love
as
that
it
shot.
should be.
Like, I don't enjoy the movie. I enjoy the movie, but I don't think it's like the best movie ever. But like, there's definitely parts in that movie where you're like, let's go.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
You can tell, as I said before, Snyder loves the Dark Knight Returns comic and animated film. Because that one shot where he's grappling down in the Doomsday fight is literally ripped straight out of the Dark Knight Returns comic panel.
What about the Justice League? What do you think of that?
I feel very sad to talk about that because
I watched them both recently, the theatrical release and then the Snyder version. It was rough. It was rough. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What do you think?
The problem with me is sometimes when I watch a movie in theater, I think it's the best thing ever made. So
yeah, that's kind of like Andrew. He's very recency biased, you know.
Yeah.
So like whatever he just watched is the best movie that's ever been made.
I've done a good job in 2021 and 2022 to not have as much recency bias.
Yeah.
But that film was released in 2017, the original Joss Whedon cut. I thought that movie was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like I thought it was a great course correction, as we would call it nowadays, from the darker version of DCEU. And Justice League Joss Whedon cut was 2 hours flat. Had a lot more jokes, had a lot more bright color palette. You know, everything that the MCU was trying to do. Obviously, Joss Whedon doing Avengers and Avengers: Age of Ultron, which are much better films than Justice League. But yeah, so then after a second watch, I was like, ooh, this is not that good. What was I thinking? I was like, yeah, this was definitely recency bias. And then I got the whole hashtag release a Snyder Cut thing, and I was like, I'm up heavily 100% part of this. I never thought it was going to come out, and it did. The day it came out, watched it with John and Sam from Cinema 3D. And I adored that cut.
And how do you feel about it now? Same?
I still adore that cut. Listen, all right, so
I watched them back to back, which was probably a mistake.
Yeah. Because, we shouldn't do that.
I remember finishing them both and being like, all right, I like the original better.
Oh.
Yeah. I know.
I should stop talking now.
Yeah. But I think it was because I watched them back to back and I was just at that point 6 hours in and exhausted. You know, like,
the best way.
It was across 2 days, but still it was too much to handle. Also, like, what did you think as an editor yourself? Like, what did you think of the format that they chose for the Snyder Cut?
I was a little thrown off by that.
I hate it.
I
feel like it was such a bad decision, and I normally really like when filmmakers like kind of go out of their way to be artistic and do something different, but like I don't think that was the right choice.
I hated it the first time I saw the trailer, and I was like, what is this? I want to see like 16:9 or
widescreen. I feel like I'm just missing so much.
Yes, I agree, and I still feel like that for like 95% of filmmaking, like movies. But I think with the situation Snyder was in, if I was in his shoes and I was going to throw a jab at Warner Brothers / DC, I would do something that no one would do. And he made a comment like,
but doesn't that affect how people like how their viewing experience is?
It does a little bit, but it does classify the Snyder Cut being 4:3 as an artistic film. And I think that puts it in a category of its own with The Lighthouse, with The Whale, and a lot of films that not very many people have seen, but a lot of films that like are very cult oriented.
Sounds like this movie.
Yeah, it sounds like a Snyder movie. But I don't know. I appreciate the fact that he was able to do what he wanted, and he got the funding from fans and family and friends to do it.
Also, man, it was way too long. It didn't need to be that long.
But in the same token, like put yourself in his shoes, right? You're Zack Snyder. And I've done this to myself because at the beginning I was feeling the same way as you. If you put yourself in Snyder's shoes in the creation of Justice League, right? BVS came out in 2016. He was probably already working on Justice League before that, while working on BVS, and it was supposed to release in 2017. Then his daughter unfortunately commits suicide. He does not want to continue working on it. Also, kind of gets sidelined and fired by DC and Warner Brothers because of the situation, but also because they didn't like the path he was taking. Which, that's their discretion, and it's also a terrible situation. So that's what kind of had to happen. Josh Whedon takes over, makes up his own version of the film, reshoots pretty much 75% of it. Some people like it, some people don't. Snyder is just kind of left in the dust, dealing with his personal issues. Still has this film that he thinks is great, and he really was trying to build up to with Man of Steel and BVS and whatever plans he had. Then fans are like, hey, let's make the Snyder Cut. And they start supporting him with all these, funding things. And he finally gets a chance to make what he wanted to make before his daughter, unfortunately, committed suicide. And so that in and of itself is a very personal attachment to a film that happened around a terrible tragedy in his life. So he was like, I'm going to go all in. And he was like, the 4-hour cut that he released for the Snyder Cut, I guarantee you was most likely the director's cut or the original cut he showed to the production studio, Warner Brothers, before they cut it down. And he was like, screw it, I'm going to release the whole thing. If the fans are funding this, I'm going to give them what they want. And he got the funding to do the VFX. He got the funding to rehire Tom Hulkenberg, also known as Junkie XL, to do the score. And yeah, he released it as a 6-episode series-ish on HBO Max. And if I was in his shoes, I don't know if I would have done differently. It's hard with that much of an attachment to the series or film itself with the personal stuff that happened. I don't know if I could have done anything else different, with the 4:3 format, with the score, with the 4+ hour cut, with the probably hour and 20 minutes worth of slow-mo. I think the film looks miles better than the original cut, with the color palette, with the grade. The editing, yes, it's a lot slower. Obviously, the slow motion slows that down a lot. I think the music is miles better than Danny Elfman's music. Not saying that Danny Elfman is a bad composer, because he's great, but I think Tom Hulkenberg reached Zack Snyder's original, plan more than Elfman did with Whedon. So, yeah, I'm very attached to the Snyder Cut. I didn't get money for it because I didn't really have money to give towards it, but I was always the one like retweeting or reposting stuff whenever the release of Snyder Cut craze was going around.
From a personal side, I totally get it. Like as a creator, I totally get it. There's definitely been projects I've worked on and it's like, I don't want to get rid of all this stuff. I'm sure you've had the same thing.
Yes.
But as like just a movie viewer, it was too much.
I think it's definitely an acquired taste.
Like I think he could have made a better movie from the start. Like if everything didn't happen the way that it did happen,
I think if,
which is unfortunate, obviously.
Yeah, I think you are in the shoes of they should have done something different after Man of Steel.
Yeah, definitely.
Which a lot of people are in, and to some aspect I'm in.
Yeah. All right, so we've talked a lot about kind of the old the DCU EU. What about the new James Gunn DCU that's yet to come to fruition that they're working on right now? What are your thoughts about that?
I'm hopefully excited. I saw the Blue Beetle trailer and it looks promising, but
I think that was still like kind of before all this change.
I think
you know, like I don't know if it's like a part of it. I think if the movie performs well,
yeah,
they'll tie it in.
Yeah,
if the movie doesn't, they'll say, "See you later."
Yeah. It's really confusing because they still technically have Aquaman 2, obviously Shazam 2, and Blue Beetle, which
The Flash.
The Flash, yeah, which that's been pushed back 2 or 3 times already.
Yep. Because when James Gunn came out and he announced like his lineup, you know, like Blue Beetle wasn't included.
No.
You know, like where did it start with? Superman Legacy, I think was the first one, and then there was another one, and then I think there was a Batman one coming in second or third there. But yeah, how is it going to work? You know, like my biggest thing is like, why are you keeping some actors and getting rid of our favorite ones?
I know that's why I'm hopefully
like, why is Aquaman still like involved? And maybe he's not. I don't know. They haven't like 100%. Yeah. I think for Aquaman and like the Flash and all this stuff, like even Blue Beetle, they don't want to say that it's not part of the new.
Yeah, because then people won't go to see the
right
movie.
Which I feel like people are already feeling.
Yeah,
you know, like I have no desire to go see Aquaman 2. I'm only going to go see it because I have this podcast and we have to talk about this stuff, you know, like
they're probably relying on people with podcasts to go see the movie.
Or people like you that'll go watch it 4 times.
No, that's if Batman's involved.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I kind of agree. It is really confusing. And the thing with the DCU and the DC TV shows and the DC animated is they originally set out to not have 2 of the same characters in the silver screen or the small screen or like animated or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now with James Gunn, which props to him because I'm fine with him going this route, but a lot of people are going to be even more confused with having Robert Pattinson's Batman, the new DCU's Batman, people still holding on to Ben Affleck's Batman.
Bringing back Keaton.
And
that makes no sense to me.
I didn't. Okay, we'll get to that in a couple minutes. And then the animated Batman show, which was supposed to come out, which was alongside the Batman, but now is not coming out, but now they're doing a new Batman show, and obviously the new Batman Brave and the Bold with James Gunn plan. So that's like, what, 3 to 5 potential Batmans that are all going to be happening at the same time, along with the new Superman, people still holding on to Henry Cavill's Batman, and Tyler Hoechlin's Superman.
Henry Cavill's Superman.
Yes, Henry Cavill's. So that's 3 Supermans, 4 to 5 Batmans, and I feel like a lot of average moviegoers are going to be even more confused than the original DCU, which is probably not going to bode well for the DCU because in comparison to the MCU, there's only one iteration of each character.
Yeah, I feel like they needed a hard stopping point of the DCU and then a hard starting point of the new DCU.
Yeah.
You know, like they should have just been, in my opinion, the Flash movie is the reset.
Which it could very well be.
I know, but like, then Aquaman still comes out.
I know that.
Like, it's literally just coming out because they're like, oh man, like we made a mistake. We spent so much money on this. We need to get some of the money back. But it's so confusing. They already cut the Batwoman movie. Which, like,
I wasn't super excited for that because the promo pics didn't look too exciting, but it also is kind of sad because I feel like they almost had a final cut or like a
they did. They said it was done.
Man,
Yeah, or at least done filming and everything, and like they saw a cut.
The main actor like so excited for playing Batgirl, and then like being like, "Oh no, your film's not going to really."
Brendan Fraser was in it as Firefly. Yep.
Which that's also another confusing thing because he's in Doom Patrol, which is another current DC thing. He plays Robot, which he's great in that.
Yeah, it's just there's too much going on.
There is,
and I feel like when Andrew and we did a Marvel versus DC debate, and one of his points was that like DC has all these like animated movies and series and stuff that are all better than Marvel's versions, but it's like, yeah, but the movies are so good and they're very easy to follow. Yeah. Like RDJ is Iron Man. Iron Man is RDJ. Like who is who, and you can like, even though there are a ton of movies and it can get confusing now, at least the timeline and who's in what universe, like it's relatively clear. But with this, it's if you're not as invested as we are, it's confusing. Like
yeah, I agree. Because
with that said, I'm very glad that they're not canceling the Batman. Because I would never watch a DC movie again if they did that.
It used to be called DC Black, but now they're labeling it as Elseworlds, which is fine because that's what it is. But as I said on our podcast, I would love to see the Batman go to 3, maybe 4 films.
Agreed.
With all the spin-off series, Catwoman, Penguin.
I'm not a big fan or super excited about spin-off series.
I'm not either, but what I
maybe
it's Catwoman.
Maybe it's because of Marvel's versions of the shows. Yeah. Like they just haven't been nearly as good as the movies.
Yeah.
And like kind of like we were talking about before, how Andrew really likes the main character.
Yeah.
I kind of like that too. Like I don't want to watch the Penguin without Robert Pattinson's Batman.
That's the thing though. I was kind of in the same boat with you. I would have still watched the Penguin even if he wasn't in it, but I saw some leaks that said that Pattinson's Batman was going to show up in the Penguin series.
See, and that's hype.
And I was like, that makes sense.
I'm on board.
Because it's part of the Batman.
Yeah.
It's a spin-off.
If these shows are an outlet where I get to see more of Pattinson's Batman, okay, I'm for it.
It would work hand in hand. You don't have to watch it to see the Batman 2.
Yes. Give me like a really cool fight scene with Batman, at least one episode per season of these spin-offs, and I'm good to go, and that'll tide me over to the next Batman film.
That's what a spin-off should be, is not what some of the MCUs, I'm not going to say all, some of the MCU's shows have just existed to be a cash grab, honestly. And a spin-off should be something where it delves into that character more.
The problem with shows is that like it needs to be on the same quality as the movies.
Yes.
And like typically the budgets are not anywhere close.
Yes.
Even though they're still expensive, but they can't get done what they could in the movies with practical effects, the fight choreography, the special effects. Like it's just not all there. And I think that takes away from the movie's draw. Yeah. And like we just we don't need it.
Yeah.
It should be something that elevates the movie's experience, not something that takes away.
By the end of that show, you should be excited for the sequel more than if you watch the end of the show and you're like, do I really need to see the Batman Part 2?
Right.
Like that's what a spinoff should do. And that's I mean, side note, but that's what I'm hoping the John Wick spinoff and spin-off show does, is like we're probably not going to see another John Wick movie, but the whole John Wick world is just so rich, and the Batman is the same thing. Like it's a character that we know so much about, but we want to see this new story, and we need to see these characters delve deeper than we have ever seen before.
Did you see a lot of the rumors going around about Clayface being the main villain for Batman 2? Interesting, right?
It's interesting. I was not expecting. I was kind of
thinking it'd be like really grounded and stuff. Yeah,
because like Mr. Freeze is not as grounded as a character as like I would say maybe was it Scarecrow or obviously Joker or Riddler, but you could still kind of make it make sense with technology nowadays.
Yeah,
Clayface that's not as grounded. That's
I
more
feel
fantasy,
like
but
the more I think about it, though, like the more it can work.
yeah,
You know, like especially watching Clayface in Batman the Animated Series. You know, like
good.
yeah, like if we can bring that kind of tone to this movie, like and kind of expand on like this universe of a like yes, like we're realistic, but at the same time there's some freaky stuff going on.
Yeah, that
You
would
know,
be
like
phenomenal because the Dark Knight trilogy is realistic. Ben Affleck's Batman is very fanatical.
yeah.
This
I want this
would
one to
be
be like kind of scary.
a blend.
You know? Yeah.
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 Like I was kind of hoping that Batman 1 Riddler perfect villain for the first Batman. It's not like a Joker level villain, but it's a great mid-tier rogues gallery villain. Kind of hoping that Batman 2 would delve into Hush. Because I've really with the detective style I was kind of hoping that like Hush would be like, oh, I'm Bruce Wayne, or you know, like who is Bruce Wayne? Is he doing wrong things? Is he doing right things? And then with that, the third film goes into Court of Owls because I've always wanted to see that live action, never seen it. But Clayface, you can kind of do the same thing you can with Hush. Like he could become Bruce Wayne and do the same exact thing. So like if not hoping to do that because I don't want to get like let down, but like if they do that where he's enacting as Bruce Wayne and he like what if he is the more active, more rich professional Bruce Wayne and Pattinson ends up basing his new Bruce Wayne persona off of what Clayface was acting like him. Like that
Interesting.
Be insane.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of complaints about the Batman is like he's like emo.
Right.
And like obviously I would love to see him become more of that. I'm a billionaire, you know, like Iron Man says,
right?
Philanthropist and stuff like that. But what if he takes from the villain?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That persona for the third film.
And kind of piggybacking off what you said that you hope there's like 3 or 4 of these movies. Like, it'd be nice if the Joker is like sprinkled in to all of them.
Yeah.
You know, where he's not necessarily the main focus, but he keeps showing up and ruining Batman's day.
Yeah.
You know, like I like that aspect.
Like we already got Jack Nicholson's in Batman 89. We already got the Heath Ledger's in The Dark Knight. Obviously, Cesar Romero in the classic Adam West. It's hard to one-up all of those.
Yeah.
So if you do something like you said, like in every film... And
it's never the focus, but it's always there.
Yeah, like he's just the nag.
I'm about it.
On your arm the entire time.
And they've already encountered each other, obviously, if he's already in...
Arkham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like that'd be a cool spin on the Joker, I think, you know?
He's referenced, he's always in there, so no one can be pissed off.
Yeah.
As long as he has a good laugh, people will be happy.
I think overall, I'm excited for where DC's going.
Now that's the Elseworlds that we're talking about.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm still hopeful for the James Gunn approach as well, because at least they have a plan.
Yeah.
Even if that plan is kind of fluid right now, you know, with all these, I guess, older projects still having to come out. But I'm hopeful that those are going to be good. You know, I've liked all of James Gunn's stuff. Yeah. So hopefully he does a good job of like connecting everything together without it being too much too soon or whatever. Yeah. I'm definitely excited for the Elseworld stuff with the Batman and whatnot. And I think that's the superhero stuff that I'm most excited for, you know, out of Marvel, DC, like that's where I'm going the most, exactly. You know. But yeah, we kind of, in this episode, we kind of talked about the past, where we're going in the future. So we kind of covered most of like the state of DC. Overall, I'm excited. I watched Man of Steel last week. I want to watch Batman vs Superman again, Ultimate Edition. So like, there's definitely good parts. Yeah, you know, like it's there. proof of concept. Like it could work if it's just done right. You know. So, Justin, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Yep. this again, our first guest
No,
without Andrew here.
This is my second time being on your podcast, but
I know.
Just this one was the first one.
Yeah, and you're a host of your own podcast. You have Cinema 3D with two other people, John and Sam. I believe you posted 4 episodes already?
3, fourth one's coming out soon.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've almost been on our show as much as your own show.
Yes, sad to say, but yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you. You're welcome back anytime. So hopefully we can get you all 3 of you guys on the show too.
Yeah, that would be
and do a debate or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. We post new episodes for Backseat Directing every Monday and Thursday. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the other podcast platforms. That's where you can find our full episodes. But then we also post our shorts on YouTube. YouTube, Facebook. You moved your hand. You distracted me. It took my attention away. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're posting stuff there daily. Make sure you like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And then interact with us in the comments. We're always commenting back and forth with the people who are interacting with the show. Thanks so much. And you gotta say it with me. That's a wrap.